Welcome, viewer. I've been playing a lot of ZeroRanger lately. For the uninitiated, ZeroRanger is a fast-paced shmup with more layers than meets the eye. Kind of like an onion, I guess. In this video, I'm going to highlight some of the pop culture references in the game. This video is going to be full of spoilers and assumes you're already familiar with the game's ideas and flow, so be warned. We can broadly divide the game's references into shmup references and to mecha references. The presence of shmup references is to be expected, given the game's genre, but until Stage 1-3, it might not be clear that the game draws heavy influence from the mecha anime genre as well. Let's talk about shmup references first. Gradius is one of the first obvious shmup references. The first mini-boss you encounter is a proxy for the Vic Viper called the Arc Adder. In the fight against the Arc Adder, it attacks you with its primary shot, but is also aided in the fight by a group of floating orbs that trail behind it. These orbs are proxies for the options that are synonymous with the Gradius gameplay. Even its attacks are similar to the ones you see in Gradius, such as the missile and ripple attacks. A fun Easter egg here is that you can see the Arc Adder collect one of its options in the background shortly before the fight, and in 2-1, you can actually prevent the Arc Adder from collecting this by killing its target enemy using the laser lock-on, prompting the Arc Adder to let out an expletive in response. Another legacy reference, this time to the R-Type series. The mini-boss in the second stage is even called the R-Typo. The gimmick in R-Type is that the player can utilise an invincible shield called the Force, which is a circular projectile normally attached to the front of the fighter. And just like in its original game, the R-Typo is capable of launching the Force forward as an offensive weapon. And again, like the Arc Adder, the R-Typo's attacks are similar in style to its inspiration, the R-Type. Here we can see the Force and other familiar attacks in use. Touhou is a game series created by Japanese developer ZUN. It reached cult status in both the East and West with its catchy, oft-remixed music, quirky character design, and challenging, punishing gameplay. One recurring character in the series is the witch Marisa Kirisame, holder of the Mini Hakera artifact. Through this artifact, Marisa is able to channel incredible amounts of energy into a concentrated beam that she calls the Master Spark. She's a fan favourite, and for good reason. But why talk about Marisa? Well, I believe she makes an appearance in Stage 3, just before encountering the ZeroRanger. Blink and you'll miss it. There. Of course, this could be another witch-related reference that I don't get, but a witch in a shmup? It's a good bet that it's Marisa. And while we're verging into crackpot theory territory here, shortly after the ZeroRanger fight in the first loop, the ZeroRanger is vaporized by a laser attack. We assume the attack comes from the Big Zan, but what if... Here's a quickie. I think there's a ton of references hiding in the default high scores, but the one that jumped out at me was this reference to UN Owen, a nested reference. First, the theme of Touhou's Challenger Scarlet, UN Owen Was Her, whose title is itself a reference to the novel And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, where UN Owen is a pseudonym of the villainous antagonist. The big one, at least in terms of depth. While considered one of the finest bullet hell games ever made, outside of shmup circles, the Don Patch is relatively little known, at least compared to the venerable Gradius and R-Type. Made by Cave, it's a game full of Cave's trademark idiosyncratic charm and style. It would not be an understatement to say that the Don Patch has directly influenced many of the shmups that followed its release. After Erasure tricks the player into collecting the Dream Lotus Jewel, they're thrown into a stage called Final Boss, which at first glance is, again, Stage 1. But this time, it's a little bit more involved. First, the player's primary fire is changed into a screen-filling attack, much like the Don Patch fighters. Second, the player's secondary attacks have been disabled in favour of a bomb-based system. Third, the scoring system itself has gone crazy. The otherwise sedate scores of ZeroRanger were replaced with scores that could reach the millions within minutes. Next, the player no longer takes damage on hit. Instead, they automatically lose one of their bomb stock. All of these gameplay elements are lifted directly from the DOM patch: the primary fire, the bombs, the scoring, and the so-called death bombing. There are some differences. Because this is the dream stage, the player does not die when they run out of bombs. They're simply given more bombs. The real DOM patch isn't quite as forgiving. The opening of the stage is also reminiscent of the DOM patch, with the rows of tanks scrolling across the screen. Let's take a look at a side-by-side comparison. So here we can see the tanks scrolling across the screen, we can see the extended shot radius, and we can see the bomb count at the bottom left corner. Lastly, the DOM patch's predecessor, DOM patch, had some mimetic English copyright and pre-boss warning text, both of which are lovingly parodied by the pre-boss warning text in ZeroRanger. That about wraps up the shmup references. One miscellaneous reference before we move on to the mecha stuff. Ever wondered why the fighters are called Rib, Decker and Grapefruit? As it turns out, there was a Finnish juice brand called Rib and Deckers, which I guess is kind of popular. In Finnish, grapefruit juice is pronounced Grapimehujoma? Something like that? Let's move on. Gunbuster is one of the single most influential mecha anime ever made. Animated by Gainax as a direct-to-video animation, Gunbuster starts off as a playful parody of popular tennis anime Aim for the Ace, before quickly pivoting towards a far more serious intergalactic war setting. Themes and concepts such as humanity's will to survive and time dilation are heavily featured, a good fit for ZeroRanger. The direct Gunbuster references are subtle. The first one is in the name of the track when you first confront the ZeroRanger in 1-3, the Ranger Machine March. This is an allusion to the Buster Machine March from Gunbuster's sequel, Die Buster, which is in turn a souped up version of the Gunbuster M20 theme from the original show. The second reference comes from the pose of the ZeroRanger after revealing your sword or drill in 2-3, showcased best in the close-up cutaway. This pose is commonly referred to as the Gunbuster pose, arms crossed, stood tall, and defiant against the threat. Here it is for comparison. Pretty dead on if you ask me. Mobile Suit Gundam is considered one of the progenitors of the real mecha genre, focusing on the usage of giant robots as instruments of war. One of the weapons used in the show is the Big Zan, an enormous bipedal combat machine armed with multiple particle guns and air-to-air missiles. In ZeroRanger, the boss of Stage 3 is the Big Zan, a similarly enormous machine armed with a particle cannon that it uses to vaporize the ZeroRanger. Immediately after the ZeroRanger fight, we have a very brief allusion to the Big O, an anime which was originally cancelled but resurrected after strong viewing figures in the West. The phrase, "It's showtime," is used whenever the Big O mecha is summoned, and that same phrase appears here as the boss introduction text for Stage 4. It's a weak link, but given the game's strong connection to mecha anime, I think it's not an unreasonable guess. I think everyone recognised this one. Gurren Lagann is a Gainax mecha anime, which many believe to serve as a reconstruction of the genre they had previously demolished as part of one of their previous shows, Neon Genesis Evangelion. It follows the adventures of Shimon, who discovers a mecha known as the Lagann, and his goal of freeing humanity from its oppressors. Seems a little familiar, doesn't it? A major element of Gurren Lagann is the Lagann's drill. The drill spiral is used as a metaphor for the power and will of humanity, always turning, always moving forward. This drill imagery appears in ZeroRanger if you choose the second power-up the ZeroRanger offers you in Stage 1-3. It's even more clear if you are the Type C fighter, as the drill grows massively in response to use, echoing the Giga Drill Breaker attack from Gurren Lagann. The other Gurren Lagann reference is more subtle. When first encountering the ZeroRanger, two of the options that appear as the pre-boss text are "Touch the Untouchable" and "Break the Unbreakable," recurring lyrics from the Gurren Lagann OST. Of course, we had to end on Neon Genesis Evangelion. a Gainax-produced anime, this show is credited as one of the first major deconstructions of the mecha genre, aiming to demonstrate that the old trope of teenager becomes pilot of giant robot isn't so cool or romantic after all. ZeroRanger opens with a cutscene showing a being very reminiscent of one of Evangelion's antagonists, the Angels, specifically the angel Zeruel. The post-first game over intro takes heavy influence from the anime, mimicking the rapid cuts and quick-fire text of the show. Let's take a look. Phrases used in ZeroRanger, such as Second Apocalypse, mimic similar phrasing in Evangelion, like Third Impact. Christian imagery is synonymous with Evangelion, and this carries over to ZeroRanger in the form of one of the primeval fighters' attacks, which involves firing projectiles reminiscent of the Evangelion crosses that appear on the Death of Angels. Lastly, a cheeky Evangelion reference happens in the run-up to the finale of Stage 2-4, when Errata states that, "I feel the best thing you could do is to end it all and leave forever." This entire line is a lyric from Com Susa Todd, the insert song from End of Evangelion. There's other appropriate lyrics from Com Susa Todd that are relevant to ZeroRanger, including the lines, "I wish that I could turn back time," and "It all returns to nothing." Certainly, the song was in the minds of the creators during development. And that about wraps up mecha. There's a huge elephant in the room that I haven't addressed yet: Buddhism. This is because Buddhism isn't referenced in ZeroRanger. It is a core fundamental part of ZeroRanger's gameplay and plot. In fact, it's such a big topic, I won't cover it in this video. Instead, I'll be making a follow-up soon. I'm still doing the research, as I am hopelessly uninitiated in the religion. If any viewers want to share their thoughts with me, please get in touch. This is the first time I've done a video like this, so please let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this, as well as to tell me about any of the references I missed or otherwise misunderstood. I know a few were tenuous, so please also submit any corrections you may have. That's about it. See you in the next video.